And the week of Steele, with an extra E for entertainment, concludes right here on awesomepodcast.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. Awesome.
Awesome.
That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No,
you're awesome. No, you are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev, and this is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And as you know, this is the week of Steele, and we're not talking my former personality from Wrestling Steel Tip. We're talking the Steele family with the extra E for entertainment. That's right, we had on earlier in the week, we had the prequel to this interview with Amara Steele. I hope, again, I pronounced that name right. And we're concluding it now with part 2 of our conversation with David Steele, who is the host of A Quest for Magic and Steele. His daughter, Amara, who we talked to in early this week, is the DM of that podcast. And we're going to pick up where we left off just a couple days ago. And that was when I found out that this podcast was a family affair, which blew my mind. And it quite honestly made the difference for me. I was always going to listen to this podcast, but it was going to be a podcast that was just like in my normal rotation. Now, the simple fact that I know this is a family doing the podcast has made it into they release on Sundays, so it's like a Monday listen for me. Like I have like 2 or 3 podcasts I'll listen to before I do anything, whether that's editing or whatever. And this one is one of those podcasts now. Because it is a family podcast, obviously it is a family-friendly podcast as well. Hopefully we don't offend any of the listeners from them when they come and listen to this interview here. Anyway, enough delay. Let's get to part 2 of my conversation with the one, the only, David Steele.
Whereas, 2 is real bad because you can't even hear Amara's my daughter, and she's the DM that runs the game.
Oh, well, okay.
Volume's real low.
Wow, okay, so this is a family dynamic. This is a family podcast.
We didn't even get into that. Yeah, we're going to have to go back.
You're living my dream, dude.
I know it.
You're living my dream. I have 3 episodes, three like little 5-minute episodes of a little podcast that me and my kid recorded that I haven't put up yet because we don't do it.
Come on.
We haven't. We'll probably put it up as like a bonus for this, but we haven't done like enough to like put it up on its own feed yet. But I love when my son says, "Let's go out to the shedia." Well, he doesn't say shedia, but he says, "Let's go out and record." And I'll say, "Let's do it." And I love when we come out here and I fire up the computer and the mixer and the mics and we just sit down and talk. And it's especially now at like 4.5, 5 years old, like he has thoughts and opinions.
Yeah. And the adorable voice to boot.
Yes. And he's if you listen to our very first episode with Philadelphia comedian Garrett Smith, my son appears on episode 2. Actually, he doesn't appear on episode 1. He appears on episode 2, and at the end of our conversation, and it's when he's super shy because Garrett's there, and it's so cool. I personally, I want to sit down and record with him every week. I want to do something where I sit down and talk to like my parents and talk to my aunt and uncle and talk to all my family that's still alive and preserve all those recordings so that like when they're not here anymore, I have something and my kids have something to remember all them by. It's the family dynamic of podcasting has been like I guess because I'm 32 and getting older now, like that's something that I'm really into. So I love that you just said your DM is your daughter. That's great.
And I have more to say about that too. We'll get into that. But also I heard, it made me think of this, was Dave Jackson. I don't know if you know him. He does a how to make a podcast basically show.
Okay.
One of my first shows I started listening to. he's got the School of Podcasting. He does a podcast. Excellent, really high quality stuff. He just had one of his recent shows. He talked about somebody was talking about, should I do a show with my kid, and it was a little kid. Oh, it was so adorable. He had a clip. This guy had this little kid on there. Hey, Dad, and he's this cute little voice. And he's like, you got to do it. And even for posterity. When your kid gets older, you have these recordings. Wow, how cool is that? And he listens back. Oh, matter of fact, they even played that too. The kid was older, so they played him in the beginning, like introducing, this is my daddy's podcast. And then now he's like in his 20s, he's like, here's my daddy's podcast. He still does the intro. It's so cool. So you got to do it, dude. You got to put it up.
You know what? I'll tell you what. That will be a bonus Friday episode in between. Obviously, this will probably go to 2 parts. Our episode here, I'm just going to call it now. And in between our 2 episode 1 and episode 2 of this podcast with you, I'll do it. I'll air whatever I have recorded as a bonus episode with my son.
Nice.
But yeah, I love it. And so podcasting for you just kind of came out of the natural evolution of you being involved with audio from being in a band, from DJing.
Yeah, well, again, so then it got into where I was doing the voiceover stuff, and I made a website. It was Steele VO, Steele VO, voiceover. So I did a site. I put up a few different, made some demos, and threw that up and tried getting some jobs and just kind of getting my feet wet, basically. Did some book narration, started listening to the podcast, like I said earlier, just on the road as I drive a lot. I'm on the road constantly. And I'm going to interrupt you one more time just because you mentioned this earlier, and that's another thing we have in common, is that's kind of where my podcast grew as well, because about 10 years ago, I traveled for work as well. Like I would either drive up and down the East Coast or fly or whatever. And that's absolutely right. Podcasting is perfect. The perfect traveling man's audio. Yep. And that's where my love grew out of it too. All right, go on. Yeah. I just want to interrupt you. No, it's just one of my, so it was Joe Rogan. And then one of my other first ones was a gaming one, was DLC, which I still listen to religiously. Excellent guys on there. Christian Spicer and Jeff Kanata actually runs it. And he's got a few podcasts. But if you like gaming, check them out. It's DLC.
I think I've heard of him before. I've never listened, but I've heard of him.
Really good. They talk about, and he got it, the way they do the audio format. He's got like little introduction music, kickers in between each segment he does. Just really professional. And I was like, you know what, this is really cool. I enjoy those. So a lot of podcasts out there are kind of crappy. Basically, there's a lot of people in the basement just doing a lot of junk. There's not a lot of quality. So when I find these quality ones that had this well done, produced stuff, I was like really turned on to those. And I ended up finding a D&D podcast. I don't know what I was searching for. I think maybe just like a story type thing. Yeah. I don't know what it was exactly how I was searching, but I ended up finding Critical Hit. And they've been doing it for years, maybe as long as you have. They did D&D basically. I ended up finding, it was about almost 2 years ago. Let me say 2 years ago. I found their podcast, and it was a one-shot day, and it was a D&D thing. Really enjoyed it. I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty cool, because I've played D&D like once before that. My kids play it. Like my kids are in their 20s, so we've played it at home. Like once. No matter of fact, we didn't play it yet. Let me back up. We did not play it yet, but I've always wanted to play it, and I never have, from growing up. I've heard about it, just never had the time or people that were into it that I knew.
I'm gonna time you out right there again, because until recently, I same way. Like I've just gotten into. I've talked tabletop for forever, and I think I've tried it in high school once, and it didn't pan out. Tried it once after that, it didn't pan out, and it was like maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I finally played a session that panned out, and I'm finally playing every other month in a group that like it all works out. So just another little common thing that we have.
Nice.
Go on.
Okay, yeah. So. I'd see them play it at home. They come in, or she'd be like, "Oh, wow." I'm like, "Where are you going?" Going with friends. We're going to go play D&D. I'm like, "Ah, cool." So, but I'm so busy at work, it's hard to find time for that. Listen to my podcast, listen to these guys at Critical Hit, doing this show, and I said, you know what? Let me go way back to episode 1. Let me hear, because I enjoyed that so much. Let me go back and because it's a storyline. They have episodes, and so I ended up doing that. And it's years ago they've done it. They're on episode, I don't know, friggin' 500 or something. I went all the way back to episode 1. Yeah, crazy. Wow. And I heard it from the beginning. It was neat because this guy that runs the podcast, Kevin, I forget his last name, but he, hey, Kev, that's you.
Yeah, that's me.
Schleicher, I think it was. Kevin Schleicher, I think, something like that. But anyway, he, sorry if I messed up your name, if you're listening to this.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But anyway, he was the newbie to D&D, and that's how he started the show. He had this guy, I guess it was from college, or the guy worked for him, Hispanic name, like from Spain or something. Diego. Shoot, I'm going to mess up his name. Anyway, go check out Critical Hit and find out his name because I am destroying it. So anyway, this guy is a really good DM, and he talked about his experience. And he would take it through, basically, I guess they were doing 4, so it was rules heavy, and the way they did the podcast was basically by the book and teaching this guy that ran the podcast, kind of teaching him along the way. So it was neat because I was learning. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. You roll the dice, you got these powers you use, you got these cantrips, okay. I had no clue what all that meant. Again, name dropping, and so I was really learning it. It was neat. So again, going back to the DLC gaming podcast with Kanata and Spicer, at the end, he does a tabletop segment. So I'm like, you know what? I love my family time. I started writing down these tabletop games that he suggested, for like 2 to 6 players, where I bought a few. Hey guys, we have our weekends. Let's play a tabletop game. We ended up playing a few different ones. I can't even name drop them because off the top of my head, I should have wrote down a list, but I wasn't even thinking about this. But anyway,
no problem.
I ended up playing some tabletop games, listening to the podcast. Let me go back on track as far as our genre, how we started our podcast. So listening to that Critical Hit podcast, doing my audio stuff with the voiceover. I said, you know what, guys, let's play D&D at home. I want to play it. So my daughter, her boyfriend, and a couple other kids said, okay, we'll do a little thing here. All right. So she DM'd it. My daughter, Amara, is my oldest daughter. And we put together this little campaign. It wasn't real heavy role playing. I was learning. I think I was a Dragonborn was my first character. I'm trying to figure out the mechanics. We didn't do it every week, so it was hard. It was like every once in a while we do it. So we didn't get into a groove. Never really took hold. Going back to listening to the podcast, listening to the show, The Critical Hit, they never got into the role-playing part of it. And I'm thinking, you know what? I love theater. I love acting. I love doing the voices. We could do a friggin' podcast, and it would be awesome. I said, because I don't know, I didn't do a lot of searching to find a good podcast. So I started searching, going to podcasts, looking up D&D. Found a ton of them. So there's a ton of D&D role-playing tabletop podcasts. There's a couple of them that are role-playing heavy. A lot of them were just gameplay, guys sitting around. I think there's like the Drunken Dungeon or something, and the Basement Guys, and that didn't appeal to me. I was more into the family part of it, like kind of more like a family-friendly, I guess, type of it. I didn't need to be cursing and talking about rude humor, which is fine. I mean, I've listened to Stern before, and like that stuff doesn't really bother me personally. But to put on a show and give it out to the masses, I wanted to do something a little more family-friendly, I guess. Just more theatrical. That was my goal. And I said to my kids, I said, you know what? Let's do a podcast. You guys interested in this? And they're like, podcast? What's a podcast? I said, all right, let's have a meeting. Ed, you want to jump in? Sorry.
Your 20-year-old kids didn't know what a podcast was?
I mean, they knew. They don't listen to them, though. They're so busy with their video games and life, and they're on their cell phones doing whatever, but they don't have the time that, like I do, traveling. They're not listening to podcasts. They know the name, but they're like, well, okay, why? What is that? So I said, you know what? I got all my kids, my 5 kids. I said, let's get together and have a meeting because I'm really serious about this. And this was months it took to get to this point, but I said, let's brainstorm. I really want to do this. I have a passion for this, guys. Come on. So we sat down. I said, here's what we're going to do. These are some ideas I had. I want to do the D&D thing because I love that D&D, and this way it'll force us to every week get together. And I said, this other show I listened to, this Critical Hit, they go through the game. We could do it in a role-playing way where we act out the characters. And me being a listener, a fan of podcasts, I'm like, that would be so entertaining, to just have something to listen to every week and hear these characters and get to fall in love with these characters and follow the storyline. I want that. I want to listen to something like that. So let's do it. And that's kind of where it came from with that. And I also said, okay, I want to do like an interview show. I want to do an improv show. We can when we get fans, we'll have them email us. Okay, this is what I want you guys to talk about this week. All right, cool. And then we'll just, because my kids are all like artistic and creative. So we'll just improv and we'll take one word or one line or, the TV shows. I forget, what was that improv show they did?
Whose Line?
Yes, that's right. Whose Line is it? So they do the improv. I love that stuff. So, and my kids are like that. They can kind of just roll with it. And we'd have matter of fact, it brings a good memory. Being a father, you'll appreciate this. But when they were younger, we had a bathroom book. I said, you know what? We're going to do this. I don't know where I heard this. Somewhere I heard this. And it's a cool idea. I started it. It was the bathroom book, it was called. And I just took this composition black, those funky school notebooks. And I wrote on the top, this is our story, the bathroom story. And then I wrote line 1, once there was a bathroom. And that was it. It's all you would do. So you're sitting on the toilet, leave a pen. The next person would come in. There's 5 kids, mom and dad, big family. The next person would come in. They'd add to the story. They'd write one line. It ended up being this crazy, cool story that we had this little creature that lived under the toilet, and it was this whole drama. Yeah, it's just stuff like that. That's great. A fun family. They're always ready to improv and make up stuff.
By the way, totally stealing that idea.
Oh, totally, dude. It's all, especially when the kids are young. When they can write, of course, the 4-year-old, I don't know how good he can write, but
no, we got another year or two. I think.
Yeah, it's anybody out there listening too, it's a great idea if you have a young family. I don't know how good it would go with old.
Yeah, and the I love that you're talking improv because that's something that I found out in my mid to late 20s that I wanted to be a storyteller. I wanted to write and direct and also kind of do improv. And so I was going to start in August, but there's a lot summer stuff going on. So I'm going to start the next session, totally taking an improv course, kind of the same along the same lines that you took your voiceover lessons or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that I want to, I think it would be fun to learn something new, even if I don't go further than that first class. But I there's something that tells me podcasting and tabletop in general, improv is all of it.
Totally.
And the way, so here's another, I'm going to drop the news. This will probably be in part 2 of our episode now. A little spoiler for the live edition of Everything is Awesome is we're kind of thinking more along the lines of
at the Philly Podfest.
At the Philly Podcast Festival. I'm kind of my buddy said, why don't you do something kind of like a late night show? And I was like, that's fucking genius, dude.
Ooh, genius. What's his name?
He's Mike D'Angelo. You can find him on Twitter at tellust.com.
Spell that.
He's a writer. He's a writer by his books.
Tellust. How do you spell that?
Tellest.
Okay.
And it's crazy because for the last 5 years, easy, I've said, how cool would it be to do late night in new media? Because I'm never gonna get on NBC, but YouTube or whatever you stream at the time.
Yeah.
I can do late night on live in new media. And I was like, that's a genius idea, Mike. I've wanted to do it for 5 years. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So that's a little spoiler of what we're going to be doing is kind of, we're trying to format a live 2 p.m. edition of a late night show. And I think improv will totally help with my end game in what I'm trying to get into. So I think it's going to end up being a fall class that I take, but I'm so excited to take a fall improv class. And that just kind of ties into what you were just talking about.
Oh, absolutely. And regardless of whether you do anything like what you're saying with the late night thing, which is an awesome idea. Yeah. Just doing improv in general could only build your life and your person, just be good for you. Just being a human, it's a fun thing, I'm a college dropout, so I don't know how I got to where I am today, but
knock on wood, I'm still pretty successful in my day-to-day life.
Right.
That I can take. I can't take the chance of like I'm going to give it all up for stand-up. I actually my buddy Garrett, who was on the first two episodes. We had a in-depth conversation about like stand-up versus improv, and like it's a very skier versus snowboarder attitude where they don't like
Really.
Yeah, and like they're better now, but even like as little as 5 or 10 years ago, like improvers think that stand-up comedians are stupid for doing all the work,
Right.
and stand-up comedians think improvers are lazy for not doing any work. They rely on the audience.
Well, it's definitely a different beast. Yeah, I mean, even how you do it.
Well, and my mindset is like, well, if I do improv, typically I imagine I'm not doing it by myself. I'm going to be either with at least one other guy or a group of guys and gals. Let's not limit it to just guys.
You could do a D&D podcast and improv the story.
And that's I think what for going back to the D&D in my life, like what was always missing was the role playing.
Yeah.
And
That's
there was
the
a
best
session
part of it to me.
and oh God, I played a session a little over a year ago, maybe a year ago, and I didn't have a good time with it, and that's the group I'm playing with now, and I'm loving it because me and the DM talked it out, and I said, well, what if we did this? And
Communication, that's key.
And him and I talked about it, and I said, okay, I'm gonna role play the shit out of this and like develop the character that's from the town that the campaign is set in. So it makes sense that my character would have a lot of knowledge about what's going on. And I just role played and like I forced the other guys to role play, and it's made the show better where they were attack heavy and like, hey, let's throw a fireball at this this pirate ship. I step in and say, whoa. I just helped one of their guys out. Let me go talk to the pirate captain, and we'll figure it out without We spent the first session that we played where I was involved. We spent an hour talking about crepes, which I think is fantastic. And that's actually out there. If you want to looking for RPG, the podcast, we have one episode up because I'm lazy. It's not recorded. No one else is into podcasting like I am. So like I have a blue snowball mic that I'm using right now, actually.
Right.
Great sound quality. But when you put it in a group of people, it's not as good. And the reason I haven't edited our other episodes is that I have a hard time like saying, do I really want to put this up when it doesn't sound as good as Magic and Steele or Too Cool for Tabletop? Like it doesn't have I imagine each one of you have a microphone. Right. We don't have that because no one else is into the idea of podcasting it. So they deal with me putting a microphone up in the middle of the table. So I have a hard time as like a producer putting it together, but the content I think is hilarious. Yeah. And I'm more of a content guy. Like if it sounds good, like if it's funny, I think that speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. But I also am as doing this for 10 years know that quality is also important. Right. So that's why we haven't posted more. But anyway, we talked an hour about crepes, which I think is just funny. Like I forcefully made them talk about crepes. And then the session that we recorded and didn't put up yet involves these characters that their impulse is to set things on fire, and I prevented it, and really good role play came out of it. Yeah. And I want to, going back to the improv, I want to strengthen that by doing that.
It's funny because I'm having deja vu because you just talked about this exact same thing with the Too Cool for Tabletop guy, right? I think I remember.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Because I just listened to that. Yeah. So.
Yep.
Hey, this sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully for everyone. Oh God, this is the problem is that when I have a lot of tabletop guys on, I tell the same story.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
I am legitimately the slightly thinner Kevin Smith of podcasting because I tell the same story over and over again.
Well, that's the cool thing about the apps that play the podcast. Most of them have that little fast forward switch, and so if you get in the middle of something, you don't have to actually shut it off. You can just kind of skip. That's kind of neat. Well, the speed too. You can speed it up.
Yeah, you know what? I have listened to a couple podcasts on 1.5 times speed just to get through it so that I can like catch up. I haven't done that in a while because like I've just been really into what I've been listening to,
which is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. If you can catch my attention and because I have an hour drive to work, so I'll listen to it on my hour drive to work. I try to listen throughout the day. I try to throw headphones in while I'm at work and listen because now I'm not at a gig where I travel anymore.
Hopefully
so
your boss isn't listening to this.
Nah, I don't think they care. I don't think. I mean, yeah, I don't think they care. And if they do, I mean, shit's getting done.
That's cool. Getting it done.
Yeah, it's getting done. And by the way, as we talked about your family-friendly podcast, totally apologize to anyone that's coming from your podcast listening to this because and I'm sure if you've listened to previous episodes, Mr. Steele, not family friendly.
Yeah. Well, it's not that bad. You're not, I mean, you're not extreme.
Yeah, no. So the difference, I used to, like the old Kev, the old podcasting Kev, the steel tip of podcasting, was much more similar to like a Stern or Kid Chris.
Yeah, a lot of guys start out like that. They think that's what catches people wanting.
And that's, I had an audience. Like I had an audience back then. And we did Stickcam. Stickcam was the YouTube of live streaming 10 years ago or maybe 8 years ago, whatever it was. Huh. And we had like, I was on a co-host of a show where we had like, over a million views in a year. I hosted a show that we had like about 10,000 views an hour.
Wow.
So like I had success in podcasting doing the shock jockey stuff. But as I got older and had kids, I don't consider myself a shock jock anymore. I just curse. And that I think is my Kevin Smith mentality of that's just the way I talk.
Yeah.
And my kids don't repeat it. Uh-huh. And when they do, like I give them a look and they know that they did something wrong and that's that. And it's just like I don't know. I would say for Kevin Smith, it's how he makes money. For me, it's not. So I don't have that defense, but it's just, I don't know. I'm not a shock jock anymore, I guess is the point.
Yeah, and what you're at now is you're just being natural and talking your normal, the way you do normally, so
and that's totally the point of this. Everything is awesome is I never wanted it to be a standard interview question where I say, all right, I got 10 questions. Let's go.
Right.
Because I'm terrible at interviews, but I'm really good at having a conversation.
Yeah, obviously.
And that's what I think sets, there's lots of long form interview shows you can look at. I was lucky enough to talk to one of the people I admire, Erin McGathy. She does a long form interview.
What is she from? I don't know the name.
She's from Harmontown. I don't know if you listen to Dan Harmon. Dan Harmon created Community, the television show.
Yep.
He has a podcast called Harmontown.
Okay.
Erin McGathy is his ex, or he is Erin McGathy's ex, depending on how you look at it. And I became a fan of hers through Harmontown, and she has a podcast called This Feels Terrible.
Okay.
She's on tour right now. I think she's in Pensacola, Florida tonight, the night of that we're recording. But by the time you listen to this, she's done. She's in Scotland, I think, doing a show. If you're listening to this now.
Doing her podcast, on tour with that?
Yes. She does her show. And I would actually say at this point, she is the truest inspiration to Everything is Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
It's awesome. No, that's fine. Every time, dude. So like the fact that like, she's not like super famous or anything, but like, She is someone I really look up to in the podcasting industry and live performance industry. And I mean, God, you can listen to episode 20 of my podcast and you'll hear me gush. I recorded 5 minutes or so before we connected, and you could hear like me talking that classic scene in the movie where the guy looks in the mirror and says, "You got this, dude. Like, you can do this." Like, that's the 5 minutes before the episode starts of me talking myself up. You can hear how nervous I am. And it was so cool. And like,
Cool.
I'm purposely waiting to like, so the other two people I really admire in long form interview is Aisha Tyler from Girls on Guy.
Okay.
Great podcast if you like long form interview, and Kevin Smith, of course, because that's kind of like he's the guy I ultimately want to be at some point. So like they're the two other gets that are on my list that, like, if they say no, I want to cry. But luckily Erin McGathy was on that list and she did not say no.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, so that is, I mean, if nothing else ever, like, that's even greater than doing a live show. Like, I did a live show almost 10 years ago, in October of 2006, I believe. We did a live podcast, and it was a great feeling. And I'm sure the Philadelphia Podcast Festival on August 21st at 2 p.m. at Tattooed Moms, shameless self-promotion, is going to be a great feeling as well. But I ultimately think that interviewing one of my gits is nothing will ever top that, except for interviewing another git.
And was that, you said that was episode 20?
Yeah. If you listen to episode 20 entitled Irish Fairies, I think it's actually a really good, it's a really good conversation that I have with her, because you hear the pre-show intro where I'm super nervous, and then save for the awkward intro where I kind of trip over some stuff and I'm still getting over that feeling. Like, it's just like this episode. It's a natural conversation, in my opinion. So
now on that point, so episode 20, so I have you on iTunes on my phone.
Yeah.
You have a website where people can go to find your episodes?
Awesomepodcast.com.
Awesomepodcast.com.
Yes, awesomepodcast.com. Look at you. You're doing my job for me.
Trying to help you out, my man. You know.
Who's interviewing who?
So you can, and you actually have all your podcasts listed out?
Yeah. So I'm not one of those guys that take them down after X amount of episodes.
Right.
I self-host, which I've learned that even though it's less expensive than hosting on SoundCloud, that SoundCloud may be the better way to go, because you can get additional listens. But I don't know, there's something about owning my own audio and hosting everything myself.
Yeah, you have to. It's the only way to go.
Yeah. It's maybe the old school mentality in me. I don't know, but it's the way I've done it.
I would suggest it to anybody. You have to have it yourself. You can't give it to somebody else.
Yeah. So, but yeah, awesomepodcast.com, which is really just a redirect to our, That's Entertainment is like the face company that we kind of right now only do like written stuff, and every now and then we'll have a video, which I don't think we've had in a year or two.
So would you say That's Entertainment? It's kind of like your network page?
Yeah, well, yeah. As of now, That's Entertainment. Thatentertains.com is our net. Yeah, that right now is our network page. If we eventually launch like a podcast network, it will eventually be HHWST, probably .net. But I don't want to.
That might throw people off.
Yeah. I don't know. It's right now. The best place to find me is thatentertains.com and awesomepodcast.com. Okay. That's enough self-promotion.
Well, just a little advice with that too, though. You might want to rethink that using those letters, because it doesn't really sell people on it, and it's kind of hard to find. Like, even typing in your Twitter handle, I was like, what the heck is his Twitter handle? It has nothing to do with like your name. I was like,
yeah, I thought about that, and
you want to make it
I have
for the fans.
I have such a hard time letting go of HHWST.
You can keep it, yeah. Make it your own little thing,
It has, so to me, like the meaning behind it is like just a bunch of friends sitting around talking. Like get rid of all the shock jock stuff I did in the past, because that was all bullshit. The true meaning of me doing podcasting and what HHWST, Happy Hour Steel Tip, was always about was friends sitting around talking. And I'll listen to that podcast. There's a lot of people.
Scary. Happy Hour Steel Tip.
Happy Hour with Steel Tip. And I guess, yeah, if you don't know my history, I guess that could be a little scary. But yeah, no, there's a lot of, like, I've been on a couple Reddit conversations about, like, I want to start a podcast where I sit around and talk to my best friend. What should I do? And a lot of people like hammer them and say, don't do it. That's a terrible idea. Everyone does that. I say, fucking do it. Like, that is, I'll listen to that. Like, that's, I want to be a fly on the wall. I want to have a conversation or listen to a conversation of people that are just sitting around as if they were in a bar. Like, to me, that's it. You and I are sitting in a bar right now chatting. And those conversations to me are just fantastic. They're just little pieces of history.
Although it's more like, what? Huh?
Yeah. So it's a much cleaner version of that, I guess.
Yeah.
Like a much, you can actually understand it and hear it. I love those type of shows. Like there's nothing wrong with them. And maybe it's because my first podcast was Smodcast, and that's all it was. It was Kevin Smith and his producer Scott Mosher sitting around talking.
And if it's done right too, and you guys keep the thing moving, it definitely can be entertaining. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that if I had a podcast with a more of a theme, like a tabletop podcast or a campaign podcast or something like that, like I could definitely have a bigger audience. But like, the people listening to this, the super friends and the whiners, I produce a show called Once Upon a Wine. So like those guys there and my listeners here that come out and support this show, like, it could be one person listening. It could be a million people listening. Like I've learned, this is what comes with 10 years of podcasting, is I used to do it for the listener and to get those high numbers. And I'm having more fun now than I've ever had in podcasting.
Are you saying that you don't care about the listener anymore, Kev?
I am saying that I love the listeners, but that this show is ultimately for me to sit around and talk to people and just have new conversations with new people like that. Like, I want to say it was Jeff from Party of One. Like, the reason he started his podcast was to sit around and play games.
Nice.
And play. The reason I do this podcast is to sit around and talk to people.
I think that's the best show too, though. The best podcast. It's your passion, and that comes through. If it's too produced, if it's too just, I'm going to do this because I want to make money or I want to charge and I want to do it, then it becomes this thing that's forced. If you love it, it's your passion, I think it comes through and when people listen. So.
No, I absolutely agree. And one of the things that I've always kind of joked around like, oh, I would love to have a sponsor, but like, really, I kind of like the idea of being an ad-free kind of show. Like, I don't want to sell you stuff. What I want to sell you is me and the guest. Like that's like, listen to that. Like, that's what's important. And like, obviously I'll interrupt this show with a commercial, but usually that commercial is, guess what? Going to be at the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. Come check it out. Yeah. Or hey, guess what? I had an awesome time talking to Aaron McGathy. Or hey, guess what? I'm going to be on Party of One. Whatever it is. Like, it's usually self-promotion of some sort. Yeah. So it usually I guess that means more. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, we went way off topic. I don't know how. This is what I love about my show. We go way off topic all the time. So, so a quest for Magic and Steele, right? It stems from, family. You wanting to play a game with your family,
right? So we ended up doing a little bit playing, but I wanted to listen to those other shows. I said, you know what, we could do a podcast, and I think we could do a great show, and it might even have a different audience than what I'm listening to. It's kind of like it became a selfish thing. Like, this is what I want. Let's do it. I think we could do a great job at it. Why not? So we got together, had a family meeting. I said, okay, first we got to find a name. And actually what I did, before I even had the meeting, I started listening to podcasts. I listen to the Podcaster Studio. I listen to Daniel J. Lewis's show,
which is insanely smart to do. It's something I've never done.
Oh, dude, that's even when I did the voiceover, I sucked in everything I could. I took that class. I started reading every book there was. I wanted to know everything, so I didn't, because I've done a lot of things in my life. I'm an older dude, you know. I've done a lot of startup businesses. I tried some stuff, and if you don't have all that info, there's a lot of mistakes you can make, you know. So with that, I said, you know what, let me find out like everything there is. I want to exhaust it, and I like reading anyway. So I'd read, I'd listen, I'd watch videos. Same thing with the podcast. And let me learn, what is this? I learned about all the mics. I learned about how to do the audio, how to do, you know, to host your crap on either Libsyn or Blueberry, or like the two big most popular things. You know, how to put it up on your. I already did websites. I do website design on the side. It was a business I used to do, but I do it for fun now. But so I knew how to make websites. Well, WordPress is the way to go. It's the easiest thing to do.
Obviously,
easy to throw podcasts up. I'm like, okay, so I knew all that going in. Also, you know, okay, domain names. If you want to host it your own, you want to have your own website. So when I had the meeting with the kids, I was like, all right, we got to have a network, because the image is, I want to do a bunch of podcasts. I want to get to the point where maybe we can get backing, and I don't want to have ads, but I want to have a big fan base where people like, oh, we love your product. We want to support you. Awesome. Now I can maybe get a part-time job with benefits, and I could put so much more time into the quality of the show and the production of the show to make it that much better for the fans. That's what we wanted. So, or at least what I wanted. And I was trying to force feed my kids. All right, this is what we're going to do.
You're going to do it.
Yeah. And you will like it. You will be part of the empire, whether you like it or not.
I love, this is everything that I have, every feeling I've had in the last 10 years.
Hey, I'm glad I'm helping you focus it.
It's well, you know what, and it's, for me, it's come to like now where I'm like, right now I'm cool with just doing the one show.
Right.
Because I'll tell you what, hosting like 5 shows.
Ooh, yeah.
Is insane.
Yeah, so that's where, so we ended up finding that, I said, well, we got to have domain. I knew how websites work, domain names. So we brainstormed. We took notes. My one daughter, Alana, she took notes. She wrote down all the stuff that we talked about. She was like taking the minutes of our little thing there. And we said, okay, what do we want to call the network? We came up with all kinds of names. Steel Empire ended up being the one that we could find with the domain name. So we used the family name with the Steel. I said, well, the Steel, we love Star Wars too. It's just like the Empire, you know? So like the Steel Empire, like, yeah, that'd be it. It would be the Empire. And then the podcast thing. Okay. What about the D&D? Okay. So let's do, what do we got? The adventure, the quest, the whatever, magic. And then we're like, and I'm thinking of steel, you know, like the real steel, like swords. I'm like, yeah, we're like Magic and Steele. So our first pilot went up on iTunes. It was just Magic and Steele. And then, I don't know, I heard something somewhere on another podcast about the name being a little different. And so I changed it to A Quest for Magic and Steele. You could still type it in to find Magic and Steele, though, either way. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we ended up going with that. We had all that info. I wanted to have separate websites as well. So we had steelempire.com with the extra E. Don't forget, for entertainment. A lot of E's in there, steelempire.com. Yeah. That's our main site. I made that up. We also did Knights of the Round Table. Oh, no, Knights of the Steel Table is what it was. It's our round table discussion we're going to do weekly. Right there, though, telling you about, you were saying like one show's enough. Yeah. So we started out doing both. I said, well, let's do the D&D, and then we'll do this Knights of the Steel Table as well, which I really want to do. It's just a round table thing. We talk about current events, something in entertainment as well. It was cool. We did a couple episodes, but it got to be too much. And me working full time as well, I'm doing all the editing, and I'm really, like I said, an audio freak. So I want it to be perfect. It got too much. I'm like, you know what? Let's focus on the D&D thing, because that's the one we're having the most fun with. So we started doing it week to week. Finally got the glitches done with Mike and everybody. Matter of fact, our first show, I edited it like crazy. There's only a couple that you can hear where Mike hits. There's guys that were holding the mics in the hands, and you're like, poof, you can hear them like banging. And it took me hours upon hours to edit this one stupid show. Saying that, well, you know what? Okay, we're going to need boom stands, so I got the table hooked up with the booms. Everybody's mic'd. Everybody needs headphones, because I want you guys to hear this when you're heavy breathing on the mic. nobody knew how to do all this stuff. So I kind of had to teach them. And then so we started wearing headphones and we started micing everybody and ended up by, like I said, the third show in, we started kind of getting our groove with the quality, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love rehearing like my learning process. Like
Oh yeah.
it's no. Well, so my first podcast I was just the host, and the reason that podcast ended after 18 episodes was because me and the producer just butted heads, and which ironically enough was the guy who I ended up co-hosting a show with years later.
Hey, creative minds, it happens.
To wild successes. But yeah, no, I fully admit, like, that when I was doing Happy Hour Steel Tip, I was an asshole. Like, that was all me. Like, it was, I don't even know how old I was. I was in my early 20s, so I had an ego, and I was like, the show is called Happy Hour Steel Tip. I'm Steel Tip, so it's just gonna be whatever I want it to be.
Deal with it.
Yeah. So and
I hope you don't like it.
And luckily, years later, like we made amends, and like I hosted. It was the show called the Stabcast, and it was such a fun show. But again, it was like that. As fun as that show was, I also look at it as like, oh, what was I thinking? Because it was very shock jockey, and I do look back at pretty much every past podcast I've done that was meant to be friends sitting around talking.
Yeah.
It ended up turning into shock jockey radio, which I'm not that I'm not a fan of it. Like, I'll sit down and listen to some of that stuff still, but I can't do it.
That's where you were at the time,
Totally. I mean, and I think like anyone doing a podcast in their early 20s, they're gonna go that route.
Please, like, you got all that the hormones and that power energy going on. You hate the world kind of thing, when you're young. Yeah.
And it's as much as I loved talking back then, and like, I mean, you could see it when I wrestled. Podcasting turned into an extension of wrestling because I had to stop doing it.
Are there videos of you wrestling? I want to see this.
Oh yeah, I need to get them digital, but yeah, there are. It's I guess laziness that has prevented me from doing it. Here's a commitment that I'll make on whatever episode number we're at right now. Is that by the end of 2016, it's an easy commitment to make. By the end of 2016, I will get on thatentertains.com some and our YouTube, which is youtube.com/That's Entertainment Videos. I think that's right. It's on our thatentertains.com page though. I'll get videos of me wrestling up, and there are some that are awful. And there are some that are really good.
Everything is awful. I mean,
some of the early stuff with wrestling is awful, but I think most of the stuff that I still have access to is pretty. It's more of my upper tier stuff because it was after I was trained by. If you're a fan of the Independents, Reckless Youth, Tom Carter, he was in the mid 90s. He was like the king of the Independents. He was on like the cover of PWI Pro Wrestling. Here I am with my acronyms again.
Go for it.
Pro Wrestling Insider. Yeah, Pro Wrestling Insider. He was on the cover of that in like the mid to late 90s, I believe. And he was like the guy back in the day. And I was lucky enough to train with him. And again, in my early 20s, ego got in my way, and I said, I don't need this. And I quit training early. And not the reason why I failed at wrestling. Purely talent failed me there. But I was definitely a decent mid-card wrestler, and probably low card in WWE standards, but in the indies, that was a mid-carder. And but from that, like, I always loved talking on the mic because I got to be in character.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so, like, I love playing the heel, which is a bad guy for those that don't know what wrestling terms are. And I loved being on the mic, and I loved, trash talking the local crowd and talking up Pittsburgh, because obviously, especially in football and hockey, there's the rivalry. We us in Pittsburgh, we just go head to head, and whatnot. So I loved playing that up, and it was always so fun. And that's where I think podcasting kind of like also like I love talking. So
Sure.
It's a natural fit for me to come to this medium and whatnot.
No doubt. Yeah, good fit. Good fit. And yeah, definitely though the video. Don't forget. So
yeah, no, it is. I will. I've only taken one other note, and that was 88.5 FM.
Yep.
But I will put the other note is post wrestling video.
And on the 88.5 too, I think worldwide, I guess you can listen to you can go on xpn.com, X-ray Papa November.com. I think that's the website, but you can go in there and check them out on there, and you can actually live stream their shows. That's kind of neat too for anybody listening.
Yeah.
All your fans across the planet.
Yeah, no, definitely. I used to love looking up where all my fans were, and now I don't ever pay attention to that.
And how did you look it up? What were you using?
There is, this was the geeky way to do it, was looking up at the raw log files that GoDaddy kept, where I could look at the IP addresses that downloaded a certain MP3 file.
Wow.
And then trace that MP3 to the country that it came
from your domain name, or how's that work on GoDaddy?
Just in the hosting somewhere.
Okay.
I couldn't even tell you how to do it because it's been so long since I've done it. But somewhere in your domain, in your hosting, there should be a log file that shows you
any IPs that have gone to your channel or to your site.
Yep. And you can, I think it breaks down to like the page that it accessed. Yeah. The files that it's accessed.
Yeah. Most domain hosts have that. They actually have a nice little thing in the control panel. I know what you mean now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to always, and I mean, God, we'll even say 8 years ago at minimum, but 8 to 10 years ago, I would go through a notepad file and just go Control F.mp3.
Wow.
And find the MP3 files. And that's how I would manually calculate our downloads.
Man.
That way. Thank God for Blueberry and doing some counting for it, even if it's not 100% accurate.
The same thing, right?
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. I don't have to it's what's great is like I know from producing a show that like talks. So the show I produce talks about ABC's Once Upon a Time, and so seeing their numbers and what they do, and seeing what I do, I'm like, all right, well, this is like I'm not talking about a TV show, so I'm doing like a percentage less than them, but that's great because I'm talking about nothing. So
and everything at the same time.
Yes, that's the beauty of the show. Everything. I'm talking about everything, really.
Right.
Okay, so where did we leave off?
Oh, who knows?
Yeah.
Wrestling video.
So wrestling videos, they will be posted by the end of 2016, the calendar year. So you were, I think we left off around you doing sideboarding the Knights of the Steel Table.
Yeah. So we ended up saying, I said, and there was a ton of like the interview show we wanted to do. I wanted to do like a 5-minute weekly thing, maybe in a daily thing. Like I wanted to do I actually got the domain name. It's actually Good, Bad, and Gray. Like the good, the bad, and the ugly, play on that. And I wanted to do like my own thoughts on things, like one point of view about something. And here's the good of it, here's the bad part of it, and here's kind of that middle road. And that's something I want to do in the future. But yeah, so anyway, I said, you know what? Stop all that because I'm too crazy busy for this. Let's just focus on the one thing. Make that a big hit, really put our energy into that. So it ended up being Magic and Steele, a quest for Magic and Steele. And Amara does most of the work. I mean, I just do the editing. I do that production, make sure the mics are working, trying to get the sound quality correct, which I think, like I said, we're on track now.
Which is a guy who does some post-production. Now, my post-production is always... I could probably do more, but I'm more of ironically, being a podcaster, I come from like a live broadcasting medium. Most of my podcasting career was done on a live streaming service. Wow. So it was never really an important thing to edit, because everyone already heard it live. don't sell yourself short, dude, because I know what editing a podcast can be like, and it can be 2 minutes and it can be hours.
No doubt.
So you could be as much work as done. Amara?
It's Amara, but yeah, people do say Amara.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amara, as much work as she's doing, like prepping the campaign, I'm sure you're doing an equal amount of work in editing at times, because
No doubt.
It's just that's one of the things I love telling people, like, do a podcast, because it is easy to do, but at the same time there's a lot of work that's behind the easiness of sitting down and hitting record.
Right.
Like, it's just so much work that I don't like to talk about. But I'm
also envious of your format too, because in a sense that it is a free form, free flowing type of thing where you could almost, you might edit out a burp here or there, or you hear some noise in the background, but mostly you pretty much let it play, right?
Oh yeah, I do. Even like though, I mean, obviously, if you've listened to the show, there's a lot of ums I let through. So I let a lot of that go through. Because I think the most important factor to that is that I have a live streaming mindset,
keeping it real.
So, yeah, and like there really, if I'm going to say it on mic, there's no reason that I can't keep it on mic.
Right.
Every now and then, I'll make an edit. Like if, for instance, like the place that I work now is a place that I don't really want to name drop, because it is like my adult job now. Sure. So like I've edited that out in the past when I've accidentally let it slip. Yeah. And anytime a guest says, hey, do you mind editing something out? Like, I'll totally honor that request. But yeah, for the most part, I listen to it and I make sure that there's no like noise in the background. And then I finalize it, produce it, throw it up. So yeah, it is very, my show is a very easy show to edit and produce. So for me to say like, oh yeah, it's easy to go out and do a podcast. It is, because, and even when I did like a produced show, it was, I always did it live first. So I never felt a need to edit it in post.
And obviously you've gotten better. Like you were saying about that in the beginning, you were so nervous and you're like, you can do it. And then now, man, like when we got together, I was actually, we didn't even talk, I'm like, I wonder, are we still doing this? Like, I didn't hear from you, I'm like, I get, and then I saw your message through Twitter. Yeah. Oh, okay. We're still on. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm on. Yep. And then when we got together, like 5 minutes before we went on, you're like, okay, here we go. Let's go. And I was like, wow. Okay. No prep, or it was just do it. No, I was like, cool.
Yeah, there's, and this, I pull this from late night a little bit. Craig Ferguson, he was a guy. Him. Yeah, he was great. Loved him. He was, I'd say Conan, Fallon, and Ferguson have been in modern late night my favorite guys. Oh yeah. And Ferguson, from what I've heard, he did no prep. Like there was apparently a pre-interview done with guests. Yeah. But Ferguson never looked at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was to make the guests comfortable. Yep. He would never request it, or it would never be handed to him. Like he did everything on the fly.
There you go, improv. And he was great at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, he was. And I appreciate that. And for me doing this show, like that's totally what makes this show work. I think is that if I did prep work, it would be, all right, let me ask a question. You answer it. Let me ask the next question. Maybe I'll play off your answer. I don't know, because I'm a terrible interviewer. Probably not. But knowing nothing going into a conversation with you is when we get a 2+ hour conversation.
Right. You're like, oh my God, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And for instance, this 2-hour conversation that we're having right now has been one of the better ones, because as much as we've gone on topic, like we keep kind of getting back to the topic. Yeah. A lot of my episodes kind of have a format where like the first hour is something, and then the second hour is pop culture. This is the type of conversation, and I've probably had like a handful of them where for me, it makes almost the perfect show where someone can listen to part 1 and they need to listen to part 1 to listen to part 2, because there is a story. Going back to storytelling. Yeah. Going back to storytelling. Like we it's just a nice flow of what I like in conversation.
Nice. Yeah, but speaking of editing too, made me think one of the worst things I hate. Like I'll get done, I'll be editing, I'll do the whole show, and I don't know how long it takes. Some are faster than others. And I'm actually shortening the show. I don't know if you've noticed, but they were like an hour long each one. Now we're getting down to, 30, 45 minutes in a show. I just think the bite size is a little better for listening. So anyway, I get done editing. I'm like, okay, cool. I got all that done. And then I'll put everything in. I'll add the music, the intro and all that. And then I'll be like, oh, crap. I still got to do like our intro, previously on Magic and Steele or last time on Magic. It's like, oh, man, I got to go back to the last show and pull all the clips and put them together and mix them in. I'm like, I forgot. I do that, don't I?
We used to do an intro that was very similar where we would, this was on Happy Hour with Steel Tip. We would, the intro would be a song, and then it would go da-da-da-da-da-da, pause, play a clip from last week, da-da-da-da-da-da, stop, play a clip from next week. And luckily at that time with that show, I never did it. But eventually when I did, so after Happy Hour with Steel Tip, I did a show called Creepcast, and that it was the same format. Like we did the intro where I would play clips from the previous week, and that's so tedious.
Yeah.
Because for me, I have listened to the show once in editing, and then, now I got to listen to it again to pull the clips.
Well, thankfully, I love hearing myself, so it's not too bad.
Yeah. Ironically, as much as I love talking, I don't like listening to myself.
Yeah,
so
I love it. I'm like, oh, that's me. No. I'm like, that's my boy.
Well, you know what? So our D&D podcast that I've only listened to 1 hour out of 6 to 8 hours of, I did love listening to that again because it was me doing a voice. Like that was one of my caveats is that, okay, I'm going to do it's going to be bad, but it's going to be a French accent. Like it's going to happen. And
just a little. Come on. Lay it.
All right. Let's see if I can do it. Welcome to the podcast of Everything is Awesome.
That's all you need is the Z's in there. You got it.
Yeah. And it's funny. The first episode that everyone's already listened to, you can hear it, and it's bad. It's like it's my worst accent. And once I get the rest of that session edited, it will be probably a total of 3 episodes, maybe 4.
Wow.
Where that accent is like, what's he doing? And here's the issue is I didn't go improv with it because we had set up so much stuff for my character to enter mid campaign. I had rehearsed it too much. And so that was in April we played and the accent was, even though I knew it was going to be bad, it was bad. In June we played again and everyone said, dude, your accent, it was bad, but it was way more on point than it was last time. And that's because for the second session, I totally improv. Like I had no thoughts of what I was going to do.
Yeah. It's funny too with the voices. I think it's episode 3 or 4, but I think it's episode 3 because when I got the third mixer, we actually had a few weeks of downtime. I actually had to order it online. I actually said, you know what? I'm getting a brand new mixer. I did some research. I ended up getting the Behringer. I forget which one, 18 something. I'm going to get a decent one. I'm going to spend the money, bump it. I'm tired of this bull. I'm going to get a good one. I ordered it from this one website. I had some problems. I never got it. Like a weekend, I'm like, what the heck? Had to go order it from somebody else. So we had a few week break, and then we came back to record, and I totally forgot my voice, how I did it. So I'm like, oh, and in the recording, it's funny, like, Dad, that's not your voice. Like,
yeah,
I'm trying.
And that to me, there's some of the coolest points in any podcast in general, but especially something like D&D where there's you're telling a story and it's theater of the mind and whatnot. I love that moment of I got to find myself again.
Yeah.
And it's so little things and as a podcaster, I pick up on little things like that. For instance, going back to Too Cool for Tabletop, when one of their episodes that was more recent than not, I heard them talk over their intro, and I was like, holy shit, they play their intro when they go, like, as they sit down to record. I was like, that's great. Like, and because I'm lazy, I haven't redone my intro to fit that mold yet. But like, I'm going to do it. Like, I need to do that again. Like, I love the idea of going through my mixer, having my little soundboard computer next to me and hitting play, so that instead, like, you hear not spoilers, pull back the curtains for the listeners. You guys heard an intro, but David Steele did not. He did not hear an intro. Yeah. So I want to bring that back, because it's kind of a good point that Jason made is that it pumps up the show. Like, it's like, okay, we're getting into it. Like, let's hear the intro. Let's get into it. All right. And let's go.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts, like, I know the way I do it, when I go back and like listen to see how it sounds, I love those little intros I have. And it's like the music in the background, and there's little clips of highlights, like funny parts where the voices or whatever. And I have them merge one into the next. And I'm like, wow, I just love that. Like the recap.
Yeah, I do. I love the way you guys recap it. It's I don't know, it's solid. It's because, and here's what I like about it, is that when you do transition from recap to like, all right, let's start the show. Like, I mean, I guess the giveaway is the sound effect that you have.
Right.
But I don't know, it's just so smooth as a fellow producer, I guess. It's just so smooth. I like it. I enjoy it.
Awesome.
So is everyone, so is it just you and your kids?
Yeah, so it's myself. A couple of my kids decided not to be in on the D&D thing, just too busy with other things in life. So my oldest daughter is heavy into D&D, and her boyfriend, Brian. Those two are the main ones behind doing the D&D thing, as far as they have the skills, they know how to play it, they know the rules, they have all the books and the dice, and so that's all comes with them. And then my daughter Shayna is number 2. She's in her 20s. She's the number 2 child as far as age wise, or when they popped out of the womb. She's the one that plays Rashandala, the mentally challenged barbarian tiefling. She's hilarious.
I have to say, is such a bold move. Like, right? Like episode 1, or the pilot episode, or whatever you want to call it. When she says, is when they say, she's the mentally challenged. I'm like, wait, what? Like, and here's what I love about it, is that it's not like the point of her character. Like, it's the only time I've heard it referenced. In 8 episodes, including the character episode, is that, like, it is that, hey, I'm playing this character who's mentally challenged. Yeah.
And not even being politically correct. Like, we're not talking about, you can't say retarded. You got to say mentally handicapped. It's not even about all that. It's just like, it is what it is. She's mentally challenged for whatever reason. And we find out a little later, like, stuff why, like, she actually got hurt and has some head damage, actually trauma. Okay. And in her character story, she talks about when she actually has amnesia. She forgot some stuff because she actually got hurt. So, but part of her fun in the character and the improv is she acts a little goofy and zany, and she is sometimes,
and I love that it's done tastefully. Like, it's not insulting, and not that, like, I guess I do have personal experience. My uncle, my dad's brother was mentally challenged, but like I never talked to him. Like I didn't really know him. And I worked at one point I worked at Wood Services, which, if you're familiar with the suburbs of Philly in the Northeast, Langhorne area, is a facility for people with special needs. But again, that was like, I worked there. I never really had a special connection to that world. Right. But I love, like, that could so easily be like an insulting thing to do, but it doesn't go there. Like, it's
and I think in anything, and this could go into a whole discussion as well, which of course we're 2 hours in, we could talk about like politically correct things and the whole concept. And I love too, the name of your show, like everything is awesome. That's such a great attitude in life. Everything is awesome. Even, there's crappy stuff, you got the shootings, the people getting shot and the police, but everything's awesome. There's still so much good, so much quality in our life. We have nothing to complain about. Like we're so blessed in this world in the United States, and all. I can go on forever. But talking about just the way it comes from your heart. Your true meaning comes through. I believe. If it's from your heart, if you really have hate, it's going to come out. You can't hide it. If you're really you don't mean anything by, I'm not against, they're retards. No, that's not what we're saying. It's from our heart, like the real, it's just, we're telling a story, and it's just, it kind of, I believe it bleeds through. You can tell it's just what it is. And we're not making any statement or anything, so.
No. And there's no reason, like there's no reason that character, that persona, whatever you want to call it, I'm using the wrong words, but that should be represented in something like D&D, because it is a fact of life in our world, and why wouldn't it be in a fantasy world?
Totally. It's when we don't even think it through. It's not like, oh, we want to have an Asian character, we want to have it. Nah, bull crap. We're not. We're just, whatever it is, we wing it. We have no hate in our heart. It's just that's what came out, and that's and especially her. If you listen to the show and you hear her, she is my favorite. As far as when I go to edit, I crack up, and even doing the show, her improv, and because she has some acting experience too. She is so on point with her character. I die laughing. Like in the middle of the show, sometimes I start cracking up. I'm like, I can't get through it. It's hilarious.
Well, and also that gives you credit for your editing, because you it's very clean. Like, you obviously hear people, you guys having a good time and laughing,
right?
But I would never say, like, I would say like an issue with looking for RPG, our D&D podcast, right, is that, again, I take the live streaming approach to it, and I kind of leave everything in.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm sure even in that first episode, there's moments of like a solid 60 seconds of us laughing because we did something so silly, stupid. But like, so that goes to speak for your editing, that I don't think there's been anything that I've ever sat down and said, oh my God, they're still laughing about this. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I mean, as you guys do a great job and it's great because and this is probably the more podcasting nerd in me, because there's definitely the norm for me in a D&D podcast, like I said earlier, is DM is the host, but that's not the case with your show. And I think that's what I love about your show, is that there's a unique aspect, and that's that you're the host, but you're a player character, not a DM.
Right.
I mean, it's you do a great job editing it, and your daughter does a great job DMing it and telling the story she wants to tell. It's good. I love it. And I'm my goal, and it's definitely going to happen, since, there's only like maybe one or two other podcasts that I'll take a break from your podcast to listen to, just so I don't fall behind. And then once I'm caught up on yours, like you're a quest for Magic and Steele. And this, I don't say this often about podcasts, and my listeners know this, like you'll be one of the podcasts that they release, I think, you guys release on Sunday, correct?
Sunday morning. Yeah. Yep.
Sunday morning. So Monday will be the day I probably listen to it. Like, so basically you're one of the few podcasts that I'll end up being like, I'm at least caught up during the week.
Nice.
Because it's good. Like, I really enjoy it.
Awesome.
And, I've, people that that know me know that I wouldn't call myself a podcast snob, but I do, and especially since starting this show, like the great thing is like I listen to a lot of mainstream podcasts that I no longer listen to. Like I had to give a lot of them up to listen to.
I'm getting to that point. Like it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've given up a lot. I used to listen to every Kevin Smith podcast. I used to now. Thank God, Aisha Tyler's Girl and Guy has gone monthly because when she was weekly, I had to sacrifice episodes that just had a guest that I wasn't into on.
Right.
Now that she's monthly, I'll listen to every episode. But like I've sacrificed all but I think 2 Kevin Smith hosted podcasts and 1 network podcast from his network. Everything else is quote unquote indie, and just people that I've picked up through the podcast, Philadelphia Podcast Society, and go expand from there, like wherever that's led to. So, and that just speaks volumes for the quality of content that you can find in a huge market of podcasts.
Yeah. And don't be careful too, though. When I hear you say that, because you are in that world and you've been in it for so long. I believe it's still not that huge. Like to you, it's huge because you've kind of grown with it, but there's still so many people that don't even know what podcasting is, that don't have, the iPhone, or even like I had the iPhone. I'm like, oh, there is a podcast app. Oh, okay. I didn't even know that, until I fell upon it. So there's tons of untapped, audience out there.
I mean, and you pretty much said it earlier, and maybe it was in part 1 of our conversation when you said your kids were like a podcast, like they knew it, but they didn't and that blows my mind because they should be the generation that knows it. Like I love that, and I mean, obviously Kevin Smith's Tusk, his movie Tusk, took podcasting seriously because he's a podcaster now. But if we want to step away from that, MTV's Scream, which I was so afraid was going to be horrible. Now I haven't seen season 2, so maybe it is. But season 1, I think gave that franchise, it did good by the franchise. And what it also did good by is podcasting. And it took that Monica Geller role, Courtney Cox role of the television reporter, and assigned it to a podcaster.
Oh, wow.
And it's the first television series that I know of that has put a light on podcasting and has, accepted it as a legitimate format.
Yeah, and it's just getting more mainstream, which is nice.
I mean, obviously, Serial, the podcast, has helped with that.
Sure. And NPR's got tons of shows that are just well qualified.
And I don't listen to any of them because I guess I haven't found one that would catch my attention. But and B, I'd rather give a local podcast a shot than anything else.
Sure.
And then B, also just like an indie podcast. Like if I find one that's outside of the Philly area through whatever happenstance, I'll give it a listen before anything else. Yeah. And that's something that like I'm proud that I have never really left behind. Like since I started podcasting. Now back in the day, it was like, let's promote indie musicians and stand-up comedians and stuff. And now it tends to be podcasters, but like definitely like we have comedians on, we have musicians on the show and filmmakers. Well, I don't know if we've had filmmakers, but we've had actors.
There you go.
And, and any
filmmakers out there that would like to come on the show?
Yes. Anyone that wants to be on, I'll literally talk to anyone on the show. May not go 2 hours, and I feel like we're gonna wrap this show up because we have gone long and it's getting really late for us East Coasters. But this is a conversation I could feel that could go for hours easily.
Yeah, we could just hang out outside of here and just
and here's the beautiful thing about podcasting is that a lot of my friends, whether they're physical or virtual now, have come in the last 6 months to a year, have come from this world. Like I consider Jason from Too Cool for Tabletop a close friend now. Like he designed our new logo.
And he's out in Texas, right?
Yeah, he's out in Texas.
Oh, and speaking of new logo, yeah, props to him because much better. Your other one.
Oh my God. Yeah, my other one was horrible, dude.
I had a hard time looking at it.
Yeah, and I thought it was clever because it was 8-bit. But as soon as he sent me that, I'm like, okay, I'm ordering stickers. I don't know if I'm going to order buttons, but I'm ordering stickers. I got a banner on order. I got wristbands on order. I'm ordering shit now.
Yeah.
And it's all because of Jason and Jeff Stormer from Party One's a good friend.
Nice. Where's he at? Where's he from?
He's from Philly. He's in the city.
Oh, that's right. He's going to be at the show. You said he goes with me.
Yes.
Awesome.
He is. What time are you? 4?
Yeah, we're 4.
Yeah. So I think
20.
I think he's 3.
Amalgam Comics.
Yes, I feel like that one's going to be family friendly because it's a comic book store. So we decided that my fiance and I decided that I'm going to probably bring my son to that one. Oh. And I'm going to come and I'm at least hanging out for Party of One and a quest for Magic and Steele.
Nice.
Because it sounds like a lot of fun. Like I can't wait to see what you guys have planned, both you and Jeff's show, for a live audience. And then we'll get some plugs out now. So obviously,
I'm sure you'll do it, but just make sure in your show notes, because I guess you're splitting the show, so the one might make it before it, and the other one might not.
the way we have it scheduled is that I don't know how it's scheduled. Your first one, I think the first part will air the Wednesday before you guys go live, and part 2 will air after that. But in show notes, always correct that. And then because I split it in half, I usually in post record for part 1, I'll record a new outro, and for set part 2, I'll record a new intro.
Cool. There you go.
So any updates to the Philadelphia Podcast Fest will be in the probably intro to this and the show notes.
And make sure you give the web address is phillypodfest.com for that.
Yes,
as well.
phillypodfest.com. If you're that in part 1, I'll have to re-mention that. But yeah, phillypodfest.com. The schedule's there. I'm excited for the lineup. I'm definitely checking. I'm definitely going to be there Saturday and Sunday of my weekend. Yeah. And I may come out
and bring the kids out to the comic book.
Yeah. No, the comic book store for sure. Yeah. Well, my daughter because she's a devil. But my son, I think can handle it.
I can't believe you just said that. You better stop.
I said it, and until she's not a devil, I will not take it back. I will let her listen to this. The first thing she can listen to when she's 4 years old, I'm gonna say, hey, listen to episode whatever we are on of my podcast. Everything is awesome. Did Daddy just call you a devil? Because you are.
No. Oh no, no comment.
I can't wait until she's old enough to talk on the mic, because I will have her and she will be the one where like I can start my debate podcast, because I'm sure her and I will sit down.
It'll be it.
Yeah. Oh my God. We'll just argue back and forth about everything.
Wait, yeah, man. Give them the mics. Let them talk.
Yeah. But yes, check out not only if Party of One, who was a friend of this podcast, and now a quest for Magic and Steele, who's a friend of this podcast, if that's not enough to get you out there to Amalgam, how do you pronounce it?
Amalgam.
Wow, I was way off.
Yeah,
which is weird, because that was my favorite series of comic books as a kid. It was when they mashed up, DC and Marvel combined into Amalgam. Huh. And they produced what if stories, like what if Superman and Captain America were the same person.
Wow,
basically.
Crazy.
Yeah, dude. I think I have one of the trades, and they made a second trade at least, if not a third. They were cool.
What's that?
Yeah. So check those out. And then, but if Party of One and A Quest for Magic and Steele is not enough to get you out there on the 20th, I'll be there. with my kid on the 20th.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, I'll be there. I want to see what you guys do. I'm really excited to see the live shows of you guys, both shows. I feel I'm interested to see what you guys do. And you and I talked about it briefly, because you're a bigger show. Like there's what, 5 of you, 6 of you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Amara, Shayna, Brian, and then my son, Josiah, he plays Aeschylus, the fighter. And then we have a family friend, Alicia. She plays the dwarf. Yep.
Okay. So you guys have a bigger dynamic than Party of One.
Right. Sure.
So I'm excited to see how you guys work that into a live aspect. So make sure you come out to Amalgam.
Just go to phillypodfest.com and it has the links
address
there, and it has actually the directions and all that stuff.
So check that out on Saturday, August 20th. I'm gonna pimp Party One at the same time. Party One at 3 p.m. Quest for Magic and Steele at 4 p.m. Stay for the whole day. I think what time are they starting up? Are they starting at 1?
Gosh, yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, because and support the places too, because they let us go there for free. You know, if you want to go there and buy something, I don't know, support them for helping out the indie.
Yeah, totally, and that is important. There's no ticket price. It is free to get into. Yeah. You can go on Saturday and you can buy some comics. You can buy some trays. You can buy some statues. Whatever it is you're into. You can catch some cool nerdy podcasts about comic books. You can catch some cool D&D. Well, for you, D&D Party of One. I don't know what he has. I don't know what Jeff has up his sleeve.
Right.
But a one-shot podcast.
Stuff. Yeah, one shot.
I love that he does it. I love that it's not him. And I did. If you want to listen to, okay. First of all, episode, I want to say 19. Is Our Radios Are Dying is the game, and that is the episode that you need to listen to for a Party of One. It is CW's version of Gravity, the movie. Like it is just it's so good. Nice. I can't. It's if you're a crier, like for me, it was a little too CW to cry at. But it was still emotional and still really good. Wow. And just like really fascinating kind of storytelling and game.
Nice.
So I highly recommend that one. And then I want to say, and I could be wrong on this, but I want to say episode 14, and I forget who the guest was, but the game was, I think, called Kingdom, and that was they set it in a mall in New Jersey. So basically, it was kind of like Clerks in RPG form. Fantastic episode. But after you listen to those 2 episodes, you can listen to my episode 18, and that's the Doctor Who episode. I play the Doctor, and it is such a fun game that I played with Jeff. Such an excellent storyteller. You can tell in the episode that I got lost in the story because there would be times he'd say something and there would be a moment of silence because I had to react.
Oh, wow.
And that's just how good of a storyteller he is.
Excellent.
And spoilers, there will be another episode with the Doctor.
Nice.
The Dr. Kev. There will be another episode at some point. But check him out at 3 p.m. Check out you guys. So are you guys doing, you said you're doing a one shot. It's going to be something separate from your main campaign.
No, it's going to be the same characters and everything, just like the main campaign, but it'll just be a special story plot where actually the coolest part of it is anybody that's interested, we're going to have a few people that we'll pick that want to actually take on a character and act out a role. They'll be able to take part in the show.
That's so cool. That's really cool. I really like that.
Yeah, we hope so. I think it's going to work out well.
Yeah. I like that a lot. So give out your other plugs. So we've plugged your 820 live show. Where can people find you on the Twitter, social media?
Twitter is at Empire Steele, Steele. Don't forget the last E for entertainment. And then just our website, it's Magic and Steele, spelled out.com, STEELE. That's the family name with the last E on the end. That's basically it. Those two spots you'll be able to find us. We have steelempire.com, but that's not, I don't have a lot of info on there. Magic and Steele is the main one. Hit us up on Twitter. Our email is pods, PODS, at steelempire.com. But any of those ways you can hit us up and catch us. One last thing, too, I wanted to tell you, dude, and anybody else that are into podcasting, coming up in September, I don't know if you're aware of it, anybody in the Philly area, the Northeast, it's podcastmidatlantic.com. It's the podcast seminar or get together, and it's basically, it's more than just a thing for us to do shows. It's actually where you go and learn. There's actually speakers.
Wait, is this in Philly?
No, it's actually going to be in Jersey, but they call it a Philly thing.
Oh, really?
Over the bridge, over the Commodore Barry Bridge, actually, because it's in Swedesboro. It's right at the Holiday Inn there in Swedesboro, New Jersey. But if you go on the website, you get all the info. But they call it the Greater Philadelphia Area, September 9th and 10th. So any podcasters in the area, definitely check that out. And it does cost. It is a learning thing, but...
Yeah, and they had the discount early on.
And it's still on right now, I think.
Oh, is it?
Or actually, I believe, because I got a discount, if you go to Dave Jackson's website, the heck did I say what that was? School of Podcasting. He had a link on there. It's like a 10% discount. If you go to his, and there's like a link you can go to get a little discount. I don't know how long that lasts, though.
Well, I'm putting that in my notes app right now.
Yeah, awesome.
Schoolofpodcasting.com, because that is something where, like, now I need to find, what I need to do is commit to buying like a Zoom H4 or whatever.
Wow. I can't wait
so
for
that
those. Yeah.
Yeah, because that, like, for me, that's the bread and butter to go and just sit down and talk to others.
Go to those places. Yeah, you got to be ready to interview. No doubt.
Yeah. So I did, and you know what? I think I wasn't ready to commit to that because I was like, well, what if the Philadelphia Podcast Festival doesn't accept me? And then I don't want to go to that one. But what I think happened is I think the Aaron McGathy episode helped me get into the Podcast Festival of Philly, which you could check me out on August 21st at 2 p.m. at Tattooed Moms on South Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Bam!
I'm still finalizing a lot of things, but I can tease two things that we've already talked about in either this episode or past episodes. We are going to change the format up a bit. I'm calling him a comptroller, but if you're a fan of Jimmy Fallon, think of him as my Steve Higgins. Mike D'Angelo will be there as my co-host type guy. We will also have a late night type of format. So that's a little hint of what we're going to be doing during the show.
Exciting.
It's not just going to be that what you saw here in the last 2 weeks.
Not just going to sit there watching somebody interview somebody.
It's going to be a little bit more than that. We're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to have a little bit of games. Maybe we're going to have more than one guest. Maybe we're going to pull all the punches. I'm going to try to do late night at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Awesome.
Because everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome, dude. And before we let you go, I will say, I will pimp myself a little bit more. You can find me on Twitter at HHWST. And as Mr. Steele and I discussed earlier,
again.
at HHWST. We may reformat that at some point. I'm not ready to let go. I still love it. I still love my
your show notes and on your website. You have a direct clickable link.
It was always, so for me, HHWST was like, it's always like, if you go back to like the YSP days, like you're listening to whatever song right here on WYSP. So to me, that's why you're listening to this show on HHWST.
HHWST with the steel tip.
Yeah, dude, that's why I don't want to let it go. But because I have a lot of Twitter handles that from past shows that I hosted and current shows and stuff. And I do have my personal Twitter used to be at Steel Tip, which I still own. Wow. And that right now I kind of transformed into as I said earlier, my buddy Mike, who will be comptrolling, writes books and stuff, and at tellest.com, tellest.com. I also dabble in the writing a little bit. And one of the characters of that series is based off of my steel tip persona, if you will. So that's right now kind of a Tellest Twitter for me, but I don't really use it.
Cool.
So I feel like I gotta figure my social media out, because I don't really build my brands well. I'm building me as a brand versus my podcast, but that's
I mean, you are a brand though too, so that could be something.
Yeah, and I feel like at some point I need to change it from at HHWST to probably at Nerdy Kev or
I'm
at,
just saying,
at Kev Gallagher.
Yeah,
it's got to be something.
I'm telling you, for me, like, I mean, this might not have happened because I was actually searching for you and I was typing in Nerdy Kev. I'm like, what the heck? Where is this guy? And I actually,
where is this?
I forget how I ended up finding you again. I was like, well, I know I have him in here, and you're in my, like, we were actually a follower or whatever. I know he's in here. I'm not going to go search through 2,000 whatever the heck it is. I'm like, I can't. What the heck is his name? And then I finally found like HH. What is that?
What is he doing? So eventually that might change. This is the play. I got to find the Twitter handle that works.
Yeah.
Change it to that, and then quickly recreate at HHWST on a separate handle, just so that I always own it.
Yeah. Well, don't you just still keep it anyway?
Oh, is that true? I don't know.
They don't ever let that go. Even, man, you could even die and like never use it again. And they don't let that stuff go at all.
So even if I change it to like at Nerdy Kev.
Well, no, I wouldn't change it. Don't change it. You have to create a new one. And actually, like, I know, like, on my iPhone, like, I have like 3 or 4 of them. I have my voiceover one, and there's actually, you just click on your profile thing and you can switch. I can do a quick switch in between them. Yeah. I'm logged into them all, and I just switch and I can jump on both. So I have other ones. Don't change it. Keep that. Just make a new one and then just, jump back and forth.
Gotcha. So yeah, you can catch me there on Twitter. Twitter is really the only place I interact. It's my favorite platform to interact at this point, at HHWST. I'm on Instagram at HHWST. Again, that's at HHWST, happy hour with Steel Tip. But I only post once in a while. Anyway, make sure the important part of this episode is that you check out A Quest for Magic and Steele at Empire,
Steel
Empire.
Yeah. Oh, well, for the Twitter, you mean?
Yeah.
Empire Steel.
At Empire Steel on Twitter, Steel Empire with an E.com, or more importantly, Magic and Steele with that extra E for entertainment. I love it. Yeah. .com.
Yeah.
For the podcast, A Quest for Magic and Steele. Give it a listen. It has the Kev stamp of approval. Woo-hoo! If that means anything. I enjoy listening to it. I am more than halfway caught up. I can't wait to finish it. Can't wait to watch it live.
No, I'm gonna have to put that on my website.
The Kev stamp of approval.
Nerdy Kev stamp of approval.
Do it. I love it. Thank you for listening to this show. As I say, week in and week out, I appreciate the super fans. You're not a super fan. You're more than that. You're a super friend. I enjoy all the super friends that come out and listen to this show. And any new super friends that are here, thank you for coming here. Check out, I recommend starting with whatever the episode David Steele's on, obviously. Start with that. But then go back to episode 20 with Aaron McGathy. That was such a fun interview. There's a ton of good ones out there. Look at the feed. We don't archive anything. Everything's always there for you to listen at all times. You can find us right here on Twitter at Real Awesome Pod is our Twitter for the show, and awesomepodcast.com. We'll see you next time right here on the internet.
Peace.